All right, let's see here. We need to... Hey, be nice. Be nice. Be... Hey. Don't. Corners. Okay. Sorry about that. Impromptu cat referee duties. Yes. All right. I'm a bit behind on setup, but we're getting pretty much there. I got the... Let's see, I got one chat. I need to grab the other chat. Doop. Pop out. Thank you. All right. All right, cheers. Good morning, welcome. Thanks to anyone who is watching. Let me scooch this one more thing here. If you are new and haven't watched this stream or me before and you don't know, my name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord, and I typically stream around this time, 10 a.m. Central Time every week on Saturdays, working on some CircuitPython stuff. So if you are new and you don't know what CircuitPython is, you can learn more at the main website, circuitpython.org, right there. This is basically a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. Most typically, if you use CircuitPython with these devices, you will plug it into your computer. It will show up like a thumb drive, little USB storage drive with a Python code file on there that you can edit with whatever text editor you want. When you save that code file, the computer that's on these devices will actually read and execute the Python code that you put inside that file. So that's kind of the really, really high level look at what CircuitPython is and what it does. On today's stream, I will be going in two different directions on it. So we'll have two fairly different things that we'll be messing with today. So the first one is the display button. Library. Issue that was reported in the Discord recently, and I don't think this will take that long to fix, and then we'll get into some LED animation stuff after that I'm working on. I don't know if I have this locally. Let's check. Probably not. What order are these in? Yeah, I think it would be display button somewhere in here. So the gist of this issue is that buttons have a function called resize, not going to be in there. And the resize function assumes that there will be a label in the button which holds text. And in some cases, that assumption is not true, and it causes it to break. Well, causes it to raise an exception. So most directly, resize takes a new width and a new height that's going to change the size of the button by updating all of the internal variables and redrawing itself, doing everything it needs to do. I mean, deself group, so that's going to pop everything off. It was like all the way there, and then I Control F to get there faster. So label, that's going to go into, so label is a property that's going to go into button base. You can maybe control click? Not really, no, okay. $80, wow, that's a lot. It should be a property, yeah, there we go, property. So, okay. Okay, so when we access label property, we're actually going to get the text from the label object. So here, it will be the text, and then when we set it, the new text is going to come in. If the label object exists, and self, that's interesting. I guess if self is not null, which not sure how that would be the case. And so, yeah, if we have a label, if self is not null, and if the last item that's in the group, because we're extending group, so when we access like this, we're accessing the items in the group, and -1 will be the last one. So, and the last item is the label, then we are going to pop it to get rid of it. We set that to none. If new text is none, or falsy in general, or the color is none, which means that the text would be invisible, then we just return. So at this point, we have thrown away the old label object and not created a new one, which is part of our ultimate problem. Okay, I'm just not used to this stuff because I'm logged in usually. There's so much stuff up here. So is 81 the setter or the getter? The getter. I'm guessing resize. So what happens when you create the button if you give it no text? Because button constructor takes a label, which it's talking about the text. Oh, this is weird, sort of. We have these all listed, but the init function is actually further down. Okay, so label comes in as none. We just pass it to super. we set it to, well, we call the property setter that will actually set the string into the property setter, which is going to go and create the label object. So even if they gave us an empty string, do we get a label object? It seems like we would, maybe. So in the super here, it just sets underscore label to label, so that's going to be the string. It could be none too, though, right? It actually, in fact, it defaults to none. Actually, to be honest, this makes no sense because this is a string. The text that appears inside the button. So you pass in a string, like click here or whatever, right? Or submit. And then it turns around and passes that same string to super init, which takes it here, calls super to group, which obviously doesn't know or care about the text. Right here, sets the string into underscore label. So at this point, after this concludes, underscore label holds the string, but this label property right here is taking underscore label and accessing text. So that's assuming that's a label object, the display.io label object from display text, which gets created here. Okay, so we call super. So at the conclusion of super, underscore label is the text. And then finally here it goes property setter equal to the text, because also label is the text as well, the argument. Okay. So interestingly, anywhere after this but before this, anywhere in that range, if you were to try to use the label property getter, not the setter like this is doing, but the getter, it would raise the error that we are ultimately having here, because it would try to access text on a thing that doesn't have it. Technically, this error is specifically text was none, so we tried to access a thing on none, which obviously doesn't exist. But it would also be the case if it was a string here. But then after this completes, self.underscore label is going to end up with a label object on it, which means the getter is going to start working at that point. Which is a bit awkward that we are holding two different things in this variable over time. But that's okay. I think that really the easiest solution to this is just guard here against. Honestly, we could solve all of the above. We could solve by just guarding here against none and having the attribute text. I'll just say fix null label issue. Okay. Yeah, and you can definitely pass none to this and it's fine, because this checks here, and we already know that none gets passed to this because the argument defaults to none, so if someone doesn't change it when they initialize it, then it's definitely just going to have none passed into it. And that doesn't seem to crash it. Let's see. I don't really have the camera set up. Could probably get the camera set up. Okay. The color is crazy. But, you can kind of see what's there, sort of. It's actually blue. But it looks pink in here. Looks white, I guess, mostly. Okay, so I did not paste the library yet, which means we have an old version of the library. In fact, let me delete this and install it from Circup. That way we know we have the current version of the library. Okay, and then if we were to use none for this, it will work the first time. Well, it will work fine unless and until you try to call mean, technically, if you try to call the label getter is where it will fail right now. So print button.label, this will raise an exception. Yeah. None has no text. Okay, and then because resize calls that, we actually will have the same problem. If we try to call resize. Yeah. But the new version, the potential new version, it works. We got a bigger button now. And this would work as well, and it would just print none. Yeah, there's our none and our bigger button because I left the resize on. Okay, that should fix it. And that actually solves... That solves the issue, which was reported, and also solves the potentially, I guess, related in some ways issue, which is that there's that window of time where the label getter will cause that exception to be raised after the super init and before the self.label equals. And then even, yeah. So that period of time is one issue, and then the other issue is if you set it to none, then the label getter will always raise the exception. Yeah, and this fixes both of those. Any other weird scenario where you end up with not a label object on underscore label, which you should always have, but... We need to standardize these, or I need to get back to going to rough. I don't have another remote. My other window. Thank you. It's so nice that you can do that if you already have accidentally gotten to this window. Not showing up with the thing here. Maybe it's because of the way this is forked like this. Oh, it's gonna let me do this here. Oh, that's probably why the yellow thing's not showing up also. BRB. Okay. Well, it's not going to show me in the thing here if it passes. Oh well, I'll try to come back. Okay. Other thing that I have sort of in the works is this new guide for creating custom LED animations to use with LED Animations Library. And it kind of stems out of helping someone on the forums who was trying to achieve a specific type of animation was having trouble. And then we have a guide that shows all the built-in ones. My middle mouse click is broken. I guess this just doesn't actually middle click though. Katney's got a great guide that shows the animation library and all of the built-in animations that are in it, and helpers as well, things like the mapping and the grouping and everything. But it doesn't talk too much about making your own custom ones. That's kind of what this guide is attempting to do. And you have to kind of work within the framework of the library, but if you do, then you end up with an animation that plays very nicely, obviously, with all the other animations. So if you are kind of new to NeoPixel animating, you might be tempted to reach for like just setting the pixels and calling time.sleep for some period, and then, you know, after that sleep, you'll set them to another color, or you'll change which ones are lit up or whatever, right? Which is kind of like the most basic, the most easiest way to create an LED animation, and that works fine if you only have that one thing to do. If your microcontroller is not trying to do other stuff, then that works fine, and the sleeps don't interrupt anything. If, however, you want to have, a handful of LED animation things running, and then you also want your custom one running, those sleeps are going to mess up, everything else that the microcontroller is doing, essentially. So you kind of need to build your custom one in a non-blocking way, which you could do without the LED animation library, but the library makes it so much easier and makes it interoperate with the pixel maps and the groups and the sequences and all that stuff seamlessly, which is super nice. So this guide is kind of covering how to do that. And where I'm at right now is I have mapped out the sort of bare minimum that you can do in order to get an animation that runs. This one just turns the lights on. It doesn't even ever turn them off, so it's not even a blink animation. Arguably, it's not an animation at all. It extends the class, but it doesn't change anything other than turning on once. But it is the most basic one. It runs, it initializes, and it does its thing. And then I think on the rest of this page, I want to talk about also the optional things. So that's the bare minimum. This section will cover the bits that are optional, that you can do but don't have to, which will include I don't have this either. Did pass sections. Animation or animations? Animation. Actually. Okay, so there's a lot of optional stuff. Technically, colors are optional, and in fact, my minimum... No, in my minimum, I am using color because I pass... Whoa. Shoot. Okay, luckily, I didn't move that anywhere that it wasn't supposed to be. Gotta be careful of that. I was trying to highlight the text, but we're on the edit page, so it drag and drops. We pass the color in, that's the color argument, and then in this one, it just calls fill to the color. Okay. We are using the color. Technically, you could ignore the color, which I guess makes it optional, but... So cycles is, and the cycle complete concept, that's a optional thing, which you need to set, like supports. On cycle complete supported, you will need to set that to true if you want to use it, so it defaults to false. Is that the first one we want to list? I'll tell you what, I could just do them in their own boxes and then I can drag and drop them around. So should I make it the literal code? Yeah, I think we should make it the literal code. Why does that go to a different place? That makes no sense. I pressed Alt-Tab once from the IDE I was in, and that brought me to here. And then I press Alt-Tab again, and it brings me to the browser. And then I press Alt-Tab again, and it brings me back to here. But the original place where I was when I first pressed Alt-Tab is, like, gone from this somehow. Okay, so we're on here, and I want to go to the browser. Alt-Tab just always brings me back to device workspace, even if I was in LED animation. Okay, that's not how I would have thought it would work, but we can try to keep that in mind. Okay, that's not really what we wanted. There we go. Oh, so, but code doesn't... I mean, or does it? It does. Okay, I guess it does. So this is a way for mostly user code, but I mean, there's no reason why a subclass couldn't also use it. So the cycle complete receiver is a way for user code or animation subclasses to get a callback whenever a full cycle of the animation is complete. So this animation subclasses, this is literal code because it's the class name. Oh. Wrong code. There we go. Subclasses. That's not a word. I mean, I think subclasses is a word, isn't it? Multiple subclassi? Subclass. In set theory. How do you refer to multiples of them? Subclasses. Superclasses. Subclasses. Classes. Callback whenever the full cycle of the animation is complete. This allows them to insert some customized functionality when that time comes. What's a good example of this? I think... I'm not sure that any of them actually use... Not sure that any of the subclasses use them. Let's say, for example, maybe you have a project that wants to play a short audio effect each time the animation, each time the LED animation reaches its loop point. Okay, so in order to be able to use the cycle complete receiver. The animation. Let's see, the specific animation class in use must set equals true. Oh. I think that took the header off of this too. Yeah. I want to have the preview also on the next tab so that I can highlight the code. Okay. Next one that is optional is I think this is meant to be replaced with that on cycle complete supported thing. So here's how you actually add it. Speed is automatic. We don't have to mess with that really. Color, zoom, fears, freeze. What's the difference between pause and... Is there a pause? What's the difference between pause and freeze? Animate will just return false if it's paused. Freeze. Sets pause true and also sets time left at pause. Interesting. I think maybe I get it. If you pause and resume, it will start at the beginning, I think. Or if nothing else, it will start immediately when you resume. And if you freeze, it will take into account how long there is until the next frame of the animation at the time that you froze. And then when you resume, it will wait for that same amount of time that it would have waited before you froze. I think that's what I'm understanding reading it. I don't know for a fact if that's the case, but... So reset does nothing here. I wonder, do any of them use reset? I think you can't do that without these, maybe? Self.reset, so commit equals reset. And overrides reset to change directions if needed. Interesting. It looks like the positive or negative of this determines which direction the comet will go. It seems to me maybe it's not that simple. Maybe it's just it starts on 0 or not. I don't know. Okay, so reset, but it is optional. So we'll put it here, and it is only needed if essentially it's only needed really if you want to like change your behavior from one cycle of the animation to the next. So like with comet, it makes sense because there's a reverse property that says the comet will fly all the way to one side, and then if reverse is true, it will fly all the way back the way it came. But if reverse is not true, then it will fly all the way to one side and then effectively just blink and be back at the start again. It will just fly the same way over and over and over. And then there is also a ring, which I'm assuming that one will like loop around somehow. Maybe that one will like start to go off the one edge and like start to appear on the other edge. I don't actually know what that will do. Let's run it and see what it does so that I don't mess up an explanation of it. I think that's on D10. Yeah. I have 32 pixels. I do not want 0.5 brightness. That sounds very bright. I usually am going like 0.05. Yeah, we can just leave that stuff. 10 out of 10 seems kind of long. Maybe let's leave it and see what it does. Okay. It looks like reverse is probably true. So like my strip is weird because it's in a grid, right? But let's make the tail length 8 since we have 8. Not AD. Come on now. Okay. My strip is going like that. Like obviously I have a grid here, which is not a strip. Technically, I mean it is a strip electrically, but obviously visually it's a grid. But if this were one long strand, the comet would be flying from the left all the way to the right. And then I guess reverse is actually called bounce, actually. Why is there a reverse and a bounce? Is there a difference between those? Bounce? Bounce and reverse are two different things. Can't combine bounce and ring. Okay. Yeah, so here's where the negative and positive of this comes in. It's actually not just negative or positive, it's if that's less than the left, so if the start is less than the left side, or if the start is greater than the right side, and we are not in reverse mode, but then we also check bounce, and then we flop the reverse mode, if that's true. This is at the end of draw. Draw gets called by animation. So this has bounce true. What if I just change it to reverse true? Oh, duh. Okay. Reverse all the time, not reverse after you go. I see. Okay. So reverse basically determines whether we will fly from left to right or from right to left. Bounce makes it so that we'll go from left to right once and then from right to left back the way we came over and over and over. And then ring would make it, I don't know what ring would do actually. That's what we came here to find out. I guess it will, yeah, and then it's going so fast I can't actually tell. Let's slow it down. My guess is that when ring is true, there's going to be some period of time where there's lights down here lit and there's lights up here lit. Whereas with ring not true, that won't be the case. That's my hunch as to what that's doing. In fact, we managed to stop it at the perfect time and there was, so. Yeah. Okay, so they kind of like, they pop out of this side while they're still flying through. It's like Pac-Man walls, basically. Pac-Man's not very wide, so you don't see it that much, I guess. I don't know if it's actually true or if he teleports, but okay, but then if that was false, my hypothesis is as soon as you're off here all the way, that's when you start here. So there will never be a time, yeah, there will never be a time where there's some lit on this end and some lit on this end. It will always, if ring is false, then it will always be, they go all the way off the far end, and then once they are all the way off, then they start coming on the front end. And it seems like there's actually a beat in between as well. Like there's a frame where there's none that are on. Yeah, totally. Okay. So we can say for Comet, it uses the reset function in order to create the behavior for the reverse functionality, the reverse like ability configuration feature, as well as the ring feature. Interesting. So we did heading 3 code, and this is going to be the reset function. So I'm going to put parentheses to make that part clear. So I guess technically you would say like a subclass could use this, but really a subclass should probably use this instead. So maybe we should edit this paragraph to just say user code and not... Yeah, because I said a way for user code or animation subclasses to get a callback, which is true. Like an animation subclass could call add cycle complete callback or whatever, could pass its own function. It's not that it won't work, but the subclass could actually just override reset, and that would be, I guess, closer to the precedent that's already set with the animations that are in the library. So really the on-cycle complete is, from an API perspective, it seems like meant more for the user code. It's meant more for the code that's using this animation, not for the animation class itself, even though it would. Okay, so this can be overridden by some classes of animation in order to insert some customized behavior that happens at the end of a full cycle. The other thing is this has to be set to true in order to use it, whereas reset has no such limitation? Maybe that's not true. Does anything call it? I mean, group and sequence call it, but yeah, I mean, you need to enable it by overriding it to do something, but you don't need to set the Boolean for it, right? Like this one, you need to explicitly set the Boolean to true, and you need to add your callback by calling that function add cycle complete callback or whatever it's called. Reset, you don't need to set anything to true. You just need to override it. Well, no, you need to override it, and you need to call it at the appropriate time. No? Yes. Yeah, you need to override it, and you need to call it at the appropriate time from your draw function. I mean, from somewhere, but your draw function is like the most likely place that it will happen, because draw is what's getting called over and over by animate. So you do kind of need to do two things if you want it to actually do anything. Because animate, the superclass animation does not actually call reset. It gives you a stub that you can override but it doesn't actually call that stub anywhere. For its reverse and ring functionalities, right? It doesn't actually, the bounce is technically somewhere else, right? Yeah, reverse and ring, and then technically bounce is inside of there. Okay, well, basically the way bounce works is by setting reverse. Oh, right, you can't do that. Same on reset. The highlights or something else? I'm not sure what you mean. And also, how's it going? Ralph, over in Twitch chat. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out. I think add the code into draw function that calls reset at the appropriate time. Yeah, the highlights. Cool. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thanks for the heads up. Oh, there's one here too, in fact. Oh. Okay, I thought I linked it accidentally. Oh, there's one here too. So it's customized behavior that happens at the end of the full cycle of animation and before the next cycle begins. A good example of this is the built-in comet animation, which has an overridden reset function that carries out the required behavior for its reverse and ring configuration features. I'm just going to go with features. If your custom animation has some behavior it needs to do when the animation loops, let's say when the animation starts or loops? No, it doesn't. I don't think it gets called the first time. Then you need to do, so when it starts or loops, so this should be, I guess maybe a comma or then, or maybe a comma and then, I'm not sure. Commas are, proper comma usage is not my forte. you need to do two things. One, override the reset function. To put your behavior inside of it. And two, add some code into the draw function that calls reset at the appropriate time. So I'm going to take a chunk of this. I'm going to try to keep defining like these that show that one part in use. It's not meant to be like another full example that works by itself. So I think I'll move this to the bottom actually. So we have def reset, and then maybe in here we will, I don't know, self.index equals 0 or something, as if we were counting through some list maybe. And then maybe def draw will do the old do something. Well, do we need that? We maybe don't need that comment actually. We could just do it. So self.pixelObject.index equals color, let's say. Self.pixelObject.index equals self.color. So it will turn on the pixel at the current index. We'll say self.index plus equals 1. And then we'll say if self.index is greater than or equal to the length of self.pixelObject, then we will call reset. And in this case, I don't even know if we need this really. It's kind of implied. Self.index on row 7. Self.index, yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate the extra set of eyes, my friend. It's one of my favorite things about streaming, honestly. Okay, so I think that looks good as kind of a basic example of like, this will just count upwards, turn on one LED each frame, and then at the end, you know what it never does? It never turns off the LEDs. So why don't we go inside of here and also say self.pixelObject.fill with black to turn it off, basically. That will turn all the LEDs off. All right, and then let's make sure this code actually runs and does what I think before I just kind of shrine it here and explain it as though it's the truth. I think this needs to be .animation. Oh, yep, these want to have self. I'm gonna leave out the import, but I'll put the, should we? Maybe we should just throw the import there. I mean, I didn't do it for this one. I think I'm gonna leave it out. These ones are meant to be snippets. I don't want to get necessarily into like, you need everything to make it work. It's kind of a more for a demonstration. If a person wants to rip it out and run it, they can, but they'll need to kind of piece together the imports and some of the stuff. But I will add the self, so let me do that. Add the self. Self. I always want to do a dot or a comma. Demo animation, so I think that will work now. Demo pixels. Speed. Yeah, we'll just leave that. We don't have tail length. We don't have rings, so let's get rid of those. We want the demo animation, which we are gonna import from this, but not really. We don't need the CircuitPy stuff. Whoa, 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 whoa. There we go. Is it to illustrate? It's to illustrate anyway, and the complete example is there also. Yep. Yeah, totally. So then demo, we will call that, and then I think that does... Oh, looks like it crashed. Demo anim does not have index. Yeah, so we need to actually set the index inside of a init, technically. Or, yeah, probably inside of a init is the appropriate place. The wrong project. Def init? Init this? We'll, Irish question function. I mean, technically we're gonna have all of these. We're gonna have pixel object, speed, and color. And we are gonna just pass those straight through to animation, and then I'll go index 0. We could technically just call reset from init. I don't know if that's like proper or not, but I forgot how you found your stream. Are you on Mastodon by any chance? Yes, technically, but I have not posted very much. And I don't think I've posted at all about CircuitPython or Python. The Mastodon, the Mastodon thing that I have, I don't use it very much, and so I don't. The model in my head, I don't exactly understand how the different server instances work or whatever, but the one that I have it linked up to or whatever was more for the Android world than the microcontroller world. I was asking a well-respected Android person some stuff about something I was working on that involved some of their examples. And then that's kind of like the main thing I've used it for so far. But I do have one. I should use it more, and I should also figure out how the linking to the different communities works and get involved in the CircuitPython and Python stuff on there. So yeah, probably not how you found me, but thanks anyway, and I'll take it as additional motivation to get more into that world. Okay, yeah. So that's going to turn them all on, and then reset is going to come and turn them off at the end. It is interesting we don't seem to have that beat in between like Comet has. I guess that's just down to the logic that's inside of the Comet, though. I don't even really see this one get turned on, so I guess reset gets called like instantly. Well, yeah, obviously reset gets called instantly because of the way I did it. We could do it differently, though. We could put this here, and then we would see the last one turn on, I think. Yeah. But, so I think it was probably turning on, but just for like 0 time, essentially. Which is not perceptible to my eye. Okay. I do think I will go ahead and include the init also, since that part is fairly paramount to the example. I wonder if it's worth calling out custom variables as an optional functionality, or if that's just kind of implied. I mean, technically, in this case, index is a custom variable as it's being referred to by that comment up there. See this this example demo animation uses a custom variable self.index. Store current index within the full strip of pixels. The overridden reset function sets self.index back to 0, turns off all of the pixels. Draw function calls reset when the index has reached length of the pixel object. I guess it's a little weird that I say self.index but not self.reset or self.draw. I mean, talking about overriding those instead of calling them, although into here we are talking about calling it. I should probably just pick, though, if I want to do self on them all or self on them none. I think I'm going to go with none. Okay, this uses a custom variable index to store the current index within the full strip of pixels. The overridden reset function sets index back to 0 and turns off all the pixels. The draw function calls reset when the index has reached to the length of the pixel object. The result is the animation will turn on one additional pixel per frame, and once all pixels are on, they will be turned off, and the cycle will repeat back at the beginning of the pixels. Back at the beginning, I'm gonna say back at the beginning of the strip, even though, like, obviously it could be laid out some other way, but like logically or electrically, it's still a strip. Result is that the animation will turn on one additional pixel per frame, and once all pixels are on, maybe we just do, once all pixels are on, they will be turned off. The cycle will repeat back at the beginning of the strip. I never did come back and change this. So the cycle complete receiver is a way for user code. Yeah, let's just say that. For a user code to get a callback whenever a full cycle of the animation is complete. This allows them to insert some customized functionality when that time comes. For example, maybe you have a project that wants to play a short audio effect each time the LED animation reaches its loop point. In order to be able to use the cycle complete receiver, the specific animation class in use must set on cycle complete supported to true. Yeah. It might be worth probably adding another thing here with a code.py that creates a demo animation and calls the add cycle complete function or whatever. is actually not unlike something from the help channel. Add cycle complete receiver. We don't really need to have the audio code like serves its purpose as an example, but the point is still the LED animation side. But you would put your audio code there, and then you would say this is play sound. And then you would go while true demo anim.animate. I kind of wish I could get this like closer without such a big breakpoint. I mean, I guess I should almost just use a header. That almost looks like less space. I guess it's just bigger and that makes it look like less space. Are these H3s or H2s? H3s. I guess I could put a comment at the top of the file? Think on that one. Maybe I'll end up doing that. So I suppose this is even like more so not about extending it. Like you could do this with the built-in animations as well, right? But I think it's good to talk about it in the context of making your own too, though. All right, so what else do we have for optional stuff we can do? So like peers, we don't really need to mess with. Shows afterdraw. Does any of them use afterdraw? Yeah, that's definitely one we could list here. I think this is like only if they support the on cycle complete, essentially. Like this is what, if you set on cycle complete to true, you need to do this. In fact, we should probably say that up here in the guide. That's true, then you also need to, inside of your draw, you need to set that to true somewhere. I think. I'll have to test that later and see if that's true. I'm going to move on for now, though, to the next one. Which is after draw. So do any of them use that? Let's get a good example if we can. Get grep after draw. Yeah, sparkle and rainbow sparkle. Let's do a -n. Will that make it clickable? Sometimes this makes it clickable, but other times it doesn't. Let's do sparkle instead of rainbow sparkle. So after draw. Interesting. Pixel. I don't know, what is pixels? Is that's a custom thing for this animation, though. Yeah, that's not a thing that exists in animation. That's a thing that exists in Sparkle. So it's a custom variable, as I was calling them before. It holds a list, and it ends up with what actually goes inside of it, though. Oh, random mask. Okay, let's run the sparkle animation on my thing and see what it does. I think this is the one where it's like they're bright and then they kind of like get dimmer some, and they like all get dimmer by different amounts. And that makes sort of a twinkling kind of effect. I think that's what this one does, but let's make sure that's the case so that I can actually explain it properly if so. Sparkle. So far it just looks like they kind of turn on in a random order. And the random thing is able to like hit the same value again, so it actually takes a while for them all to turn on. I don't really see much variance after that, but I'm on a very, very, very low brightness. My guess is if we do go a little bit higher, that we start to maybe see variance in the brightness. Still not really seeing any, though. I don't really want to blow out my eyeballs either. Don't have an easy way to just stick it down all the way, really, but... Alright, shield your eyes. So there's like a very subtle kind of like dim flicker sort of thing that happens to them after they're on. And I have to assume that, yeah, that's this thing working, basically. Okay. Let's put this back down, where we accidentally laser anybody's eyes out. And then we can go back to here. New text, after draw. I mean, is there really a difference between inserting behavior into after draw versus just inserting behavior at the end of the draw function? Like, you're already overriding draw because you have to make your thing do anything. After draw is going to get called after draw returns, after draw is done. I don't know, I guess it's good to give it a name, but I don't know. We want to explain it how it is, not how it could be, I guess. So it definitely makes sense to still explain this one. So after draw can be overridden by subclasses of animation to insert customized behavior that will occur after each animation frame. Thought we might have had to play cat referee again, but for example, the built-in sparkle animation overrides the after draw function to set some of the pixels to a dimmer color in order to create the sparkling effect visual. Where does dimmer, I'm curious actually, where does dimmer color come from? Dim color. By just dividing. So in contrast to reset, it will get called automatically. You do not need to explicitly call it inside of draw. I think we can probably get rid of the quotes, truthfully. All right, so we'll say demo animation. We're not gonna have a an index. We're not gonna have a reset. Let's see. I'm trying to think how I want to do this. I think we will actually have a variable. I think we might need a -1, but I'm not sure. Yeah, need a -1. Okay, so choose a random index, set the color of that random pixel, that randomly chosen index, set the pixel at that index to our color, set the last drawn pixel to that. Actually, let's do last drawn pixels, and let's make it a list. And then last drawn pixels dot append the random index, and then def after draw self if length of last. We could probably just call this drawn pixels, honestly. It doesn't need to be last drawn. Drawn pixel indexes would be more technically correct, I suppose, but Drawn pixels. So if length of that is greater than 5, take the first one, turn the pixel off, and then remove it from the list. So you can pop by index, can't you? Pop 0 gives you the first one back and removes it from the list. So we'll basically make a queue where the oldest one is at index 0 and it will get removed, which then means the next oldest one will get removed next time, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to go, so if the length is greater than 5, we're going to get the oldest index, which is self.drawn pixels.pop 0, and then we're going to go self.pixel object oldest index equals object oldest index equals 0, 0, 0 to turn it off. So they'll turn on in a random order, they'll stay on for 5 frames, and then they'll turn off, or maybe 6, or maybe 4. I could be off by 1 in my logic there. I don't actually know, but they'll stay on for some frames, 4, 5, or 6, and then they'll turn off. And then it will just kind of keep going, always with 5 or 4 or 6 lit up at a time. All right, did I type that off the cuff successfully? I'm gonna guess no, but maybe. Are you for real? What? We have... Oh. I think that messed us up, probably. Oh, this one's like that, too. I'm not... Was I ever typing spaces? I feel like sometimes I feel like sometimes I'm pressing tab and getting spaces, and sometimes I'm pressing tab and getting tabs. Whoops. Okay, there we go. I am just in the REPL. I'll take this paper off too, since we're not on blinding level 11. Yeah, okay, there we go. So we always have 5 or 4. Sometimes we go down to 3, actually, which is a little bit weird. For the most part, we always have 5. Oh, you know what it is? You know what it is? We can randomly turn on one that's already on, right? So our random is random. So like it could come up as a 7 the first time, right? And then the next time it comes up as a 3, and then the next time it comes up as another 7, right? And it's just going to set the color again, but the color was already set because we hadn't reached 5 yet. Therefore, we hadn't popped off the prior 7. So if you re-roll, if the random were to re-roll the same index, then for the next 5 frames, you'll end up with only 4 lights on because there's 5 indexes in the list, but some of them are duplicates. You could have 3 as well if you rolled 2 duplicates. Technically, you could have 5 duplicates and there'd be only 1 on. It's way less likely, but it could happen. Okay. Yeah, so that basically works. This does what we want. We turn them on, we turn them off. We do our thing. This shows after draw, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's do this a bit more. This example animation implementation turns on random LEDs until there are, I'm just going to say until there are 5. Technically, we know it can re-roll the same, and that whole, I just don't want to explain all of that here because it's not really important to the actual concept of after draw. So I'm going to make it simplified and just say 5. If we really wanted to enforce it, we could add logic here that says, like, generate a new one while the currently generated one is not in the list, and then it would enforce it to be 5. But that also adds complexity to the code, which I don't think is necessary. I'm just going to say 5, even though it's not technically accurate. So this example demo animation, I don't know if we really need implementation. That might be a bit overkill. This animation turns on random LEDs one at a time until there are 5 LEDs on. Then, let's just say after 5 LEDs are on, the after draw function is used to turn off the LED that has been on the longest. The result is that random LEDs turn on and stay on for 5 frames of the animation and then turn off. I'll just tack on, it uses the custom variable drawn pixels to store a list of indexes of the LEDs that are currently on. Even though that's like not directly related to the afterdraw concept itself, it's used within the afterdraw for this example, but I think it's good to just mention that. Okay, I don't think we really have time to do another one. I usually stop around noon. I did get started a few minutes late today, and I do sometimes run past noon depending on what I'm working on and what I'm doing for the day, but I am going to be stopping pretty much on time at noon today, so I'm going to start wrapping it up now, truthfully, since we have only about 4 or 5 minutes, and there's not really going to be enough to do another one of these. I don't know that we actually have any other optional features to do. Anyway, I'll have to look back into here next time I sit down to work on this. But I think we're getting close to like all of the stuff that you can really override in there. I mean, at some point, we'll probably should explain like speed and color, but There might be a section in the existing guide that does that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up for now. So thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to Ralph the Ninja over in Twitch. Appreciate you watching along and looking over my shoulder there a bit on the code and helping me out. I will be back starting on Friday. Scott's out, as you may know, if you watch the Adafruit streams and the deep dive and the other CircuitPython related content. So Scott's going to be on leave starting now, basically. And so I'll be back on Friday next week over on the Adafruit channel, Friday afternoon for the deep dive. That is typically billed in the Pacific time zone because that's where Scott lives. So it's usually billed as 2 p.m. U.S. Pacific time, 5 p.m. U.S. Eastern time, because that's where Adafruit is at, is in the Eastern time zone. I am personally in the Central time zone, so in my head, Deep Dive is at 4 p.m. on Friday, Central U.S. time, because that's where I'm at. But that's what time it is. I will be there this week at that time, no matter which time zone you're in. Over on the Adafruit channel, we will be deep diving it. And then I think I should be back next week as well for the Saturday morning stream as well. So yeah, I think we'll be back then too. So until then, I will bid you farewell. I will say thanks again for watching, and see you later. Hope you have a nice weekend.